Welcome back to Doc's Projects. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. Today I'm going to be working on a car, which actually was my career. I was a master technician for Ford for many years, retired as a parts and service director at a dealership, but I'm all prepared today to work on my grandson's car. Normally in retirement I've been doing woodworking, epoxy work and stuff, so I still do some of those, but I thought, hey, as long as I'm doing this, I might as well share with you some things on doing a water pump on a Ford Fusion 2013 with a 1.6 liter engine. Very tricky job, so if you feel like you're mechanically inclined or you got a pretty good background of technology, this is something that you might want to try to do. There are some specialty tools that you need to use. You can usually get a loaner program from one of your auto parts stores nearby to get some of these tools, but you'll need them. And there's some that they say you need to use that you don't really, and I'll show you a way to get around those. But today, the engine we're working on is a what you call an interference engine. What's that? Never heard of that.
That's a great question. I've been wondering that myself.
Surprisingly, most engines are interference type engines. Some are freewheeling. What does that mean? To start with, kind of a disclaimer. If you don't know what an interference engine is and you're not really familiar with the workings of an engine, this is probably not a video that you want to watch because you don't want to attempt this. It's going to be just for somebody who's got a pretty good skill with automotive. Interference engine means that the piston and the valves, if not timed properly, can connect with each other and damage each other. So if the timing belt breaks, for example, the piston's going to continue to go up and down, up and down, up and down, but the valves, instead of getting out of the way, are going to be stuck open. So bang, 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 damage the top of the piston, bend the valve, possibly crack the head, destroy the engine. So here's a few shots of what that might look like. But again, if you don't know the four-stroke engine, you don't know the basics, this is probably not a place that you want to be. But you're welcome to watch. Maybe you might have some fun with it. So my grandson will be here pretty soon. As soon as he comes in, we're going to open up the garage door, have him roll in, show you some of the basic tools, and step by step show you what we're going to do and why, and what you got to be really careful of. Forward a little more. Back to the camera. It's going on YouTube. Off the hood. Oh. Okay, folks, this is my grandson, Nick. Hi, folks. This is Doc's Projects. So we're going to jump into this. We'll let you know how it's going. Well, Nick is jacking up the car. I'm going to go ahead and take that lid off that says EcoBoost. It's fairly simple to do. It just has little poppets. And look how simple that was. There's the engine. And all the fun stuff we got to get out of the way so we get way down into the front of the motor. Pull these off with two hands because you got to pull on them. I was holding one hand with the camera, the other hand's a little tougher. Next thing I'm going to do is down here. It's going to cause coolant to come pouring out of there, so I've got a bucket down below. I'm going to try to catch the coolant as much as I can. See, I told you. So now that we got that disconnected, we can just pull this up out of this tab here. Okay, so I've got the coolant overflow bottle out of there. Now I'm going to start taking apart some of these bolts to get the motor mount out, but we've got to support the motor from underneath first. And start getting a lot of these things out of the way so I can get down to the timing cover. Before I do that though, I'm going to take a bunch of snapshots with my phone. When I first started getting into the business back in the 1970s, wow, age, didn't have cell phones, so didn't have cameras with me all the time. So I'm going to take a few pictures here. That just helps later on when you've got so many wires and hoses and clamps and devices and hard shell connectors all over the place. Sometimes later on you're putting them back together and you're thinking, where did this one go? Because one of these hoses might look like it has 2 or 3 places it could go, and you don't want to get them wrong. So it's good to take several pictures of the different areas that you can always refer back to. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, moving on to the next step here. I've got these nuts off here, getting ready to pull this up. I've got some Allen head that I got to get out of here, remove those. And this bolt, this bracket will come up. I've taken pictures of all this. Another couple of bolts on the outside here, and then I'll be able to remove this motor mount. I've got the motor being supported underneath with a wooden block and a jack. I've taken off the electrical over here. The one I got stuck off to the side is the one from the bottom. One from the top I got folded back across the top. And I'm probably going to have to cut some of these. In some cases you'll see a bracket like this that'll have a little tie strap going around something to secure it, and then it's trimmed off. I simply cut those, and then when I go to put it back together, like this one for example, I'll cut that so I can remove it from its mounting to keep it secure, and then I'll replace that with a tie strap once I put it back together. The nice thing about these little things is the tie strap goes right through that little hole. So I will continue on and we'll put the camera back on when we get a little bit further along. Sometimes when there's lots of nuts and bolts and things, if possible and it won't be in the way, I like to take some of them and put them back where they're going to go. That way I don't have to worry about storing them, because normally I'd put them all in a pile somewhere and then later on I got to dig through and find them in the pile. So some of these bolts like that, once I get that removed, I might just put the bolts back in the holes, providing they're not in my way. So just another tip. Try to put some things back close to where they are. That just minimizes looking through the pile, or at the end going, where did these last 3 bolts go? Okay, so I got the rest of the bolts out. This comes out easily now. Make sure we've got the engine supported from underneath, because the engine was supported by this otherwise. And now you can see we've got a little bit better shot for getting in there. So next thing we'll be trying to get those things out of the way to get that timing cover off. See how the timing belt looks. I wanted to prove to you that Nick's actually working on the car too, so didn't want you to think it was just me.
Thanks.
He's currently suffering trying to figure out how to get a hose clamp off. It's the squeeze type clamps. So he's been fighting that for about, what, 30 minutes?
I got the clamp off.
You got the clamp off? Now you guys got to get the hose to break loose.
Yeah.
Sometimes these hoses clamp on and kind of weld themselves to these metal nipples. And if they're plastic nipples, you got to be extra careful because they might be brittle. So you got to be careful of those kind of things. So
Yeah, watch out for the nipples.
okay, and with that, on to the next move.
Stop it. Get some help.
Okay, well, as you can see, we've got the water pump out, and now we're going to do the thermostat.
Notice the tie straps that I put around the timing belt. That's to keep the tension there so that the belt does not slip a tooth. If it was to slip a tooth, I'd lose my timing, but rather than take the crank pulley off and go through all that hassle, I found it better just to keep it in place because the belt was okay, did not need to be replaced. So I just left it holding its place for the timing and we can move on.
This is the thermostat housing right here. Nick just got done pulling the hose off of here, which is part of the housing. So now he's going to take these two 8mm bolts, pull that off. He's already got the wire removed from it. And then we'll take this off and this hose. We're going to put the thermostat and housing in together. The reason we're doing the whole housing is because it's really difficult to take the thermostat out of the housing without damaging it. So it's better just to plan on, in this case, just do the housing which has the thermostat already included with it. Another point about thermostats, I can't explain the physics behind it, you just have to trust me. Anytime you have your cooling system open to such an extent as this, in other words, you're doing a water pump or a radiator or hoses, where the water or the coolant all drains out, if it drains out for a few hours or longer to where the thermostat will dry out inside, if you don't change it, you can count on 2 weeks later it locking up on you, overheating your engine. Don't know the physics behind it, something about the spring, but once it dries out, about 2 weeks later, give or take a day or two, it'll lock up on you. So always a good idea to do the thermostat when you're ever doing something extensive with the cooling system. Okay, let's undo those bolts, Nick. Okay, well you can see there where we got the thermostat out, we had a couple of hoses connected to it. The tough part was the bolts underneath because the one on the far side underneath is really hard to get to when it's all in there to get it out. So we did the bottom bolts first. The top two came out pretty easy and then disconnected those two hoses. The fire hose, the hose clamp was turned around backwards so we couldn't get to it. That made it a little tough. But we finally got it on out of there. So now we're going to clean up the area, lubricate the O-rings a little bit, and get it put back on. Okay folks, so here we go. We've got the thing all done. We've got the water pump back in, thermostat housing back in, hoses put back on, the clamps, double checking everything. A little bit of a trick with this, should have showed it to you before I put it back on, but there's 3 tabs on the back of this tensioner, 2 wide ones, not the same distance or not the same width, and then a small one. Well, in the back of the water pump, I'll show you this. See the square? Well, the bolt in the center goes in here. The little tiny tab goes into that hole. One tab goes above, one tab goes over here. So when you're putting it back in, make sure as you put it in that you watch where the bolt goes and the little tab goes into this hole. That way it snugs right up against it. The other 2 tabs go on the outside. They're not form-fitting, so don't worry about it if they're not right in perfect position. And then once you get that in, then you can pull out the little device that you had in those 2 squeeze tabs, and that puts the tension back. Once the tension's back, you're all set. And of course, before you put it all back together, don't forget to take this tool out before you put the cover on. So recap, it's running, we got it all back together, we put the coolant in it, thermostat finally opened up, and you can see that the gurgling action has happened over at the the coolant overflow bottle. We're continuing to let it go because there's going to be a lot of air bubbles down inside that engine. It's going to take a little while for all those air bubbles to come around and go up into that overflow bottle and burst up. So he knows he's got to keep an eye on it for a couple of days and top it off if need be, but you don't want to top it off more than the maximum, otherwise it'll spit it out anyway. But it got done, he just got, Jack stands out from underneath, he's got a big smile on his face. Let me see that smile. There's the big smile. So we're all good. Another job well done. Another $2,000 saved. Hope to see you at the next video.
We're done when I say we're done.